My name is Jennifer. Standing outside the warm, well-lit house, the cold air stings my face like a wake-up call. I take a deep breath, a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding for what felt like an eternity. Behind me, the house full of expectations and pressure seems to shrink with every step I take away. It all started at that fateful Easter dinner. My sister, Lily, is 35 years old. She and her husband, Tom, have been trying to have a baby for years. Our family is a close-knit one, but also a bit traditional. My parents, Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, are in their 60s. Dad is a retired banker, a man of few words but with a strong sense of family duty. Mom is a former schoolteacher, always believing she knows what's best for everyone. As I sat down at the Easter dinner table, the atmosphere was warm and filled with the clinking of glasses and the low hum of conversation. Little did I know that a storm was about to break. Lily, sitting across from me, her hands folded neatly, had a look of determination in her eyes. Suddenly, the clinking of glasses stopped, and the conversation died down. Every pair of eyes turned towards me. Mom leaned forward first, her voice calm but with a sharp edge. "Jennifer, you owe Lily," she said matter-of-factly. "After your divorce, she took you in when you had nowhere to go." Dad nodded beside her, his eyes fixed on the table, as if he'd already made up his mind. I felt a tightness in my chest. It wasn't just the demand, it was the assumption that my body, my life, and my future were all up for negotiation. Lily then slid a folder across the table towards me. The soft scraping sound of the paper against the polished wood echoed in my head like thunder. I stared at it, not opening it, because I knew that once I did, it would make this whole thing real. They had planned this without even consulting me. Mom gave me a small, encouraging smile, the kind she used when she thought she was being reasonable. "We've made everything easy for you, Jennifer. All you have to do is sign." I finally opened the folder. Pages filled with legal jargon, terms, obligations, medical clauses, and timelines stared back at me. It wasn't a simple suggestion, it was a binding agreement. They had clearly expected me to comply. As I flipped through the pages, my hands grew cold, and my heart pounded louder with each line. There was no room for my feelings, my fears, or my future in those paragraphs. It was all about what I would give, endure, and surrender. Dad tried a softer approach. "You'd be helping your family, Jennifer. That's what matters. Duty, helping, owing." The words they used made it sound noble, but it felt like a vice tightening around me. Lily finally spoke, her voice gentle but firm. "I wouldn't ask if I had another option, Jennifer. You're the only one who can do this for me." It was a declaration, not a request. I was the solution to their problem, and everyone in the room had already agreed on it. For a moment, I sat in silence, letting the weight of it all sink in. The room felt smaller, and the air was heavy. I could hear my own shallow breathing as I looked down at the contract again. Every line felt like a chain, and every clause a lock. But something inside me resisted. Maybe it was the memory of all the sacrifices I'd made in my life. Maybe it was the voice in my head reminding me that I'd fought hard to rebuild myself after my divorce and couldn't lose control again. Or maybe it was just the simple truth that this wasn't right. As I kept reading, I found a clause buried near the end of page 4. It was written in the same formal tone as the rest, easy to overlook if I wasn't paying close attention. But I was. Every word mattered now. I didn't react immediately. I closed the folder slowly, my fingers steady. The room was watching me, waiting. Mom's smile had become tighter, and Dad's patience was wearing thin. Lily leaned forward slightly, anticipation in her eyes. They thought they knew how this would end, they thought I would cave in. But I wasn't the same person who had once needed a place to stay and accepted whatever was offered just to survive. I had changed. Holding that contract in my hands, I realized this was my moment. I looked around the table one more time, taking in every face, every expectation, every assumption. For the first time since the conversation began, I felt a sense of calm. I knew something they didn't. I let the silence stretch, making them uncomfortable, making them wonder if I was about to agree. Then I opened the folder again, slowly and deliberately, flipping to the page that had changed everything for me. I circled the clause and handed it back. My voice was calm, too calm for what they expected. Mom leaned forward, her smile returning as if this was the moment I'd finally say yes. Dad exhaled, relieved too soon. Lily's eyes lit up with what she thought was victory. But I didn't say yes. I tapped the page with my finger. Did you actually read this? I asked. Lily frowned slightly. Of course I did. It's standard, she replied. No, I said, shaking my head and sliding the contract closer to her. It's not. She looked down, following the circle I'd drawn. Mom leaned in beside her, and Dad adjusted his glasses. All three of them scanned the paragraph. I watched their expressions change in real time. Confidence faded, confusion crept in, and then fear. It says here, I continued, my voice steady, that in the event of medical complications, the surrogate agrees to follow all decisions made by the intended parents regarding treatment, regardless of personal risk. Mom blinked. That's just legal wording. No, I cut in sharply. It means if something goes wrong, if it's my life or the baby's, I don't get to choose. The silence that followed was suffocating. Lily looked back down at the page, reading it more slowly. That's not what it means, she said, but her voice lacked certainty. It is exactly what it means, I replied. And it doesn't stop there. I flipped another page and pointed to a second section. This part says I'm responsible for maintaining optimal health conditions as defined by you. That includes diet, travel restrictions, even where I live. I looked up at them. Do you realize what that means? You'd control my entire life for 9 months. Dad said that's normal for surrogacy, but even he didn't sound convinced. Not like this, I said quietly. Not without safeguards, not without my rights being protected. Mom straightened up, her expression tightening. You're overreacting. This is your family. We wouldn't let anything happen to you. I let out a small, humorless laugh. You already did, I said. The moment you decided this for me without asking. That hit me harder than anything. Lily closed the folder, her hands trembling slightly. We just thought you'd understand, she said. I do understand, I replied. I understand that you're desperate. I understand that you want a child, but that doesn't give you the right to take control of my body and my future. Dad rubbed his temple, clearly frustrated. So, what are you saying? You're just going to refuse? After everything Lily's done for you? I met his gaze directly. Letting me stay with her after my divorce wasn't a transaction. It was family, or at least I thought it was. No one spoke because they had no answer. I stood up slowly, the chair scraping against the floor. For a second, no one moved. They were trying to process how quickly things had slipped out of their control. I'm not signing this, I said. Not this contract, not under these conditions, and not because you think I owe you. Mom's face hardened. If you walk away from this, don't expect things to stay the same. I nodded. They already aren't. I picked up my coat, my hands steady. There was no hesitation, no doubt, just clarity. As I turned towards the door, Lily's voice stopped me. Jennifer, please. I paused, but I didn't turn around. I'm sorry, she said, her voice breaking slightly. I didn't realize. I closed my eyes for a brief moment. For the first time that night, she sounded human again, not entitled, not certain, just scared. I hope you find another way, I said quietly, but it won't be through me. And then I walked out. The cold air outside was like a reset. I took a deep breath, And with each step away from that house, the weight of their expectations and pressure seemed to lift. For the first time in a long time, I felt in control, because I had finally chosen myself. And sometimes, that's the only decision that really matters.